Tonight on NBC, Jimmy Fallon and Bozoma St. John host the highly anticipated new competition show.
I hired 10 creatives from all walks of life. They will be battling it out to see who can impress the world's biggest brands.
This is a huge opportunity.
This is the battle for the next big idea.
This is not play.
We're spending millions of dollars.
I'm so excited to embark on this adventure with all of you.
May the best idea win!
On Brand with Jimmy Fallon, series premiere tonight on NBC.
Tito's Handmade Vodka is America's favorite vodka for a reason. From the first legal distillery in Texas, Tito's is 6 times distilled till it's just right. And naturally gluten-free, making it a high-quality spirit that mixes with just about anything. From the smoothest martinis to the best Bloody Marys. Tito's is known for giving back, teaming up with nonprofits to serve its communities and do good for dogs. Make your next cocktail with Tito's. Distilled and bottled by 5th Generation Inc., Austin, Texas. 40% alcohol by volume. Savor responsibly.
Welcome to the Age of Jeremy. My name is Jeremy Quintanilla. If you're new to this show is all about my business adventures and side quests. I own a few businesses such as 3T Warrior Academy, Age of Radio, Merlin, the smartest way to track your crypto, Q Financial, Freedom Insurance, and I am working on building those and then starting some other ventures as we continue. Also, our sister company, Geek Collective, that Age of Radio and Joey Galvez own together as well. Before I get started into today's episode, you might know that there's not the traditional normal music that's playing. And again, I'm continuing to work with a new software, Wavelab Cast 2, and I haven't imported the other audio or the opening into the episodes yet. So just hold tight. They'll be back and you can listen to songs that you've probably never heard of before and probably will never listen to. That's not true. You might listen to them. I hope that you listen to them because that's the reason why I put them in here, so that you can learn about new music and expand your mind, I guess. That would be the best way for me to say that or to think about it. Yeah. The other things that I want to mention too, if you are into cryptocurrency, I talk a lot about cryptocurrency on here. Cryptocurrency is very important because it is the distributive ledger technology, the blockchain, the way in which it manages transactions, the speed of it, and blockchain is going to be the future of our financial infrastructure more and more. Banks are starting to utilize it. There are some famous ones like businesses like Ripple, which if you follow Coach JV, which you should, he's my business partner, you would know how important Ripple is to the financial infrastructure and why XRP is so important. And one of the cryptocurrencies that we've been talking about for a very, very long time. So I encourage you to go research that and follow Coach JV and watch our 3T Warrior Academy YouTube channel. But if you're already into cryptocurrency, you might know that a lot of the times your cryptocurrency can be all over the place. It can be on a MetaMask wallet. It can be on, I had some on an Engine wallet. It can be on, I've had it on BitTrue along with XRP, not only on BitTrue, but I've had XRP on Coinbase. I have had XRP on Kraken, and sometimes you don't want to go and look at all of that on the different platforms. You want to see where everything is at one time, and Merlin, our crypto tracking app, allows you to do that. It allows you to connect your wallets and exchanges so you can see everything in one nice, easy-to-use dashboard. You can see your daily gains, your daily losses. You can see what your average buying price was. You can see what the price is currently selling at, how much you hold, no matter where it is. And by where it is, I mean, like I said, I had XRP on BitTrue, I had XRP on Kraken, I had XRP on Coinbase, and actually for my personal self, it was on BitTrue and Coinbase. For our businesses, we had it on Kraken and BitTrue, if I'm not mistaken, or Kraken and Coinbase. So I don't want to give you false information there. And so it's important because you can see it in one place. But what also makes Merlin so amazing, in my opinion, you know, I'm a little biased because it's my company, but it allows you to set exit targets so that you know when you should exit, pull profit, and then if you follow our academy, or if you follow what we do, you take that profit and you deploy it into other assets that either create cash flow or provide protection for your wealth. And if you're interested in that, you can check out 3twarrioracademy.com. But for Merlin, you want to go to merlincrypto.com, check it out, get 30 days for free. You sign up right now, you get 30 days for absolutely free. You do have to put your credit card in, but again, you can cancel at any time. It's super easy, and you won't get billed for those 30 days. The other thing that makes it great is sometimes we travel. Like I was just in Mendota with my family at a Choice Hotel at a Quality Inn, and I wanted to check my cryptocurrency, and I didn't want to do it on, I wanted to do it on my desktop, even though Merlin is an app as well. I wanted to do it on my desktop rather than using the, I'm connecting to the Quality Inn internet, right? So I'm doing an unsecure internet. And so rather than logging into my Coinbase or logging into my Bitrue or logging into my MetaMask on my browser, being on really an unsecured network, I could just go on Merlin and see it. Because the great thing about Merlin is we don't hold any of your keys. We don't allow people, if they get into it, to have access to anything. All they'll be able to do is see what you see. They could change exit targets, but it doesn't actually go and sell the stuff on your behalf, because again, Merlin is just a dashboard for you to see everything, so you could have your data better controlled, and you could have it all in one place, and you can set exit targets and keep it organized. So again, go to merlincrypto.com, start your 30 days free. There's no special promo code or anything. Just go through the process, put in your credit card. Again, you won't be charged for 30 days. If you want to cancel, we made it really easy to cancel. And we have customer support available for you there at all times. Essentially, you can put in customer support. We have live hours where our customer support team is available. You can even pick up a phone and call our customer support line during certain hours and get the questions that you need answered. So I'm really proud of the team, for Mario, for Antonio, and for Mikey. Team's doing amazing. Customer support really sets us apart. Not only that, it's the best crypto tracking app out there. So again, merlincrypto.com. The other thing I want to mention before I get started is I'll be at the Phoenix Zoo on November 8th. At the Phoenix Zoo, we're doing a 4-hour live stream. You're going to get to hear me talk. I don't know how we're going to do this. We're going to figure it out. It's going to be amazing. I got to start prepping for it this week and into the weekend. I have so much stuff going on. I also am talking this weekend at an insurance event. Then in the midst of that, I'll be figuring out for another event, our Foundry event, and then we'll be at UwuCon, and then eventually we'll be at the Phoenix Zoo. But the reason why I want to bring up the Phoenix Zoo now is because if you listen to this episode and you're in the Arizona, on October 4th, this weekend, you can go and meet Todd McFarlane at the Comic Conversations event that they are having. Just go in to the Phoenix Zoo, get into the Comic Conversations, see all of this amazing comic book artwork. Stuff is going to be for sale. All those proceeds are going to go to the Phoenix Zoo, if I'm not mistaken. On this weekend, Todd McFarlane, the creator of Spawn, will be at the Arizona Phoenix Zoo, the greatest state in the nation. In my opinion, obviously I'm biased because I live here. Phoenix Zoo, my mother was a member of the Phoenix Zoo for many years, I think, or at least for 1 year. I bought it for her for Christmas. I need to get my membership back. I love going to the zoo. Phoenix Zoo does a great job. They have great stuff going on, and this is one of those great events. So Comic Conversations, October 4th is the big launch date. But if you can't make it October 4th, you can go in. It's open during the weekdays. You can see the event. It's going to be going through January. You can see all the great comic book stuff. And on November 8th, I will be live streaming from the event as well. So make sure that you check it out. Maybe if I remember, I'll put some links in the episode description and throw those links inside of my Dope Insights and Updates broadcast channel. So go over to Instagram, follow me, go to the bio, hit Dope Insights and Updates, join that. You can get extra stuff that I post in there, and you can also hit me up if you're in the academy as well, 32 Warrior Academy. We have so much stuff going on. Now I'm going to talk about H1B visas. One of the most exciting things anybody could talk about are H1B visas. Aren't you super excited about them? I know I am, because I have a situation where I might need an H1B visa. I've tried to get an H1B visa for someone in the past, and they had to go into a lottery, and then I had to pay some money. It was only going to be like $5,000, but now that dipshit who's in office, Donald Trump, made it $100,000. And I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to Hard Forks regularly. I listen to Pivot with Scott Galloway and Kara Fisher. I listen to On with Kara Fisher. I listen to All In with Tremont, with David Sachs. It's more right-leaning, but they're logical on a lot of stuff. Some of the stuff that they say is fucking stupid, but no one's perfect. I say a lot of stupid shit, so I understand. But point being is that I listen to everything that those three podcast had to say about the H1B visa. And there was stuff on the left-leaning podcast that left out, and there was stuff on the right-leaning podcast that left out for the other one's opinion. So I'm going to try to talk about it in all aspects from both sides, and my own experience with H1B visas and my current experience with H1B visas that might be impacting what we have going on now. So again, H1B visas is a big topic, and it can cause a lot of problems with what the Trump administration is doing. And I'm going to talk about that now. But if what they say is the reason why they're doing it, is the reason why they're doing it is the reason why, not the reason why I think that they're doing it, then yeah, I get why they're doing it. But as you'll see, there is another loophole that the people that they say that they're trying to do it to stop doing what they're doing, which I'll talk about in a second. If they continue to do that, there's a loophole. And so this is just going to hurt people like me who may need to get an H1B visa for someone here in the future, and I won't be able to afford it unless I get some more shit together with this specific business. I'll have to take it from another business. So essentially the basics of the H1B visa are this. So it's for specialty occupations requiring a degree or equivalent experience, such as tech, engineering, finance, and medicine. There is currently an annual cap of these types of visas for companies at 85,000 visas, 65,000 general, plus 20,000 U.S. master degree holders. And the whole point of this is to get specialized workers or workers that have a really high knowledge skill to work for companies here in the United States to give us a leg up in certain areas, or just in areas in general that would require these highly skilled workers. And so workers are tied to their sponsoring employer. If that job ends, so does that visa, and those people go away. Now, when the Trump administration said that they were going to change this, where it was going to cost $100,000 for companies to have these H1B visas, it didn't go, it wasn't retroactive, meaning that if a company had an H1B visa on an employee and this happened, they don't have to pay the $100,000 for every H1B visa that they have employed. It's only going to be on new people moving forward. Okay. And so those are the basics of it. So what happens is, because there's so many people that want to get these visas, the 85,000 visas are actually in a lottery. And so essentially when we were trying to get Josh, who's in Canada, to get a visa, they were saying, well, we could put it in for the lottery, and then we would have to prove that he has that, better skill set. And then if we won the lottery, then we could pay the current $5,000 and get Josh to be able to work here in the United States because he's, Canadian. Not something that you normally think of as, an immigrant, but that's an immigrant. And so, a lot of the times, especially with the way the news pushes it, in my opinion, the immigration is really pushed towards immigrants that aren't white. And Josh is definitely white, and Canadians are our white brethren. So white. I don't know. And so again, it's for any immigrant is my point. And so it's not like biased against immigrants of a different skin color than the majority of the skin color that's in the United States. Now, that being said, the H1B visas are essentially thought of to be exploited. And so the biggest companies that exploit them are outsourcing firms. They're the ones that dominate the lottery with mass applications. Then they subcontract workers. And then there's wage suppression by classifying roles at lower wage levels. There's worker dependency, which is legal status tied to the employer limits bargaining power. And then there's obviously lottery flaws. Smaller, innovative firms often get crowded out by bulk applicants like the outsourcing firms. And so the Trump administration wanted to stop essentially the outsourcing firms from going in and taking advantage of all these lotteries and then paying people under wage than what they would otherwise being paid. And there's lots of there's lots of foreign companies that do this, such as Tata Consultancy, Cognizant, there's Infosys, I might be saying that wrong. So Infosys, Tata, Cognizant, they are all companies, these outsourcing firms. They flood the system with applications, they dominate the lottery, and then they subcontract workers to U.S. companies. Okay, so again, that's one of the biggest things that they're trying to stop by doing this $100,000, payment. Okay. And so again, when you look at it from that perspective, this sounds like a really, really good idea, because the whole point of this is to get good workers that can actually help us continue to be innovative. Because again, the H1B visa for colleges, which isn't part of this 85,000, they have unlimited amount of H1B visas they can give for students, from my understanding, is that, again, H1B visas are so important for us because they allow people to come here into the United States. They allow people to then be able to get their education, and then they can go and work for these firms or do research and not have to worry about this specific stipulation or for it to be so costly. And that has given us a leg up over many years because of the fact that we have been having this H1B visa to get these specialized knowledge workers that then we can then utilize in our universities, utilize in our workforce, utilize in our tech industries and our medical fields and all of the other stuff, because, we in the United States maybe we have the best schooling system, but we don't, I feel like, encourage the schooling system enough. But that's a completely different story. So on the surface level of this, what Trump wanted to do with these visas seemed like a good idea on the surface of it. And so one of the things that Hard Forks talked about, they had a person from like an institution that looks at these types of the policies. I can't remember exactly who it was off the top of my head, but the problem is that there's another loophole that the outsourcing firms can utilize, which is an L1 visa. And so the basics of the L1 visa, it allows a multinational company to transfer employees from overseas offices to U.S. offices. There's no annual cap. Companies can use as many as they want, unlike the H1Bs. So there's two types. There's L1As, which are for managers and executives, and there's L1Bs, which are workers with specialized knowledge about the company's process or products. And so currently, there's already problems with the L visas being taken advantage of, because unlike the H1Bs, the L1 visas have no prevailing wage requirement, so companies can legally pay transferred workers less than U.S. market wages. There's unlimited use, so since there's no cap, there's large outsourcing firms can flood the U.S. market with the L1 workers without restriction. And then there's obviously specialized knowledge abuse. So the definition of specialized knowledge is super vague. So essentially, when we were talking with the lawyer to try to get Josh in here, because we talked about possibly figuring out this, utilizing it from an L1 perspective as well, because it's like you transfer from an overseas to a U.S. office, and because Josh had his own like company, we were like trying to figure out if, okay, could we have him just transfer over to the United States on an L1B visa, even though he's the worker of his company, and would it work with him not being like a payroll employee in Canada vis-a-vis, just being the business owner himself. Okay. And so again, when we were talking to the lawyer, we just had to make an argument that Josh understood what we did better, and it would be less efficient for us to retrain someone else for how our systems work. So like, he knew our whole 3T Academy ecosystem. He'd been working with us for like 8 years. So, from Canada, it would be very difficult for us to hire someone else and get them up to speed with what specifically Josh is able to do because of what he does for our business. Super vague there, but like what Josh specifically physically does as a graphic designer for copy, things like that, we can find that here in the United States, but you could make an argument that he had specialized knowledge about what we did. So again, because it was a company that we worked for overseas and we would transfer them to a U.S. office per se, it could have worked. Okay. We ended up not being able to do the L1B visa, and we ended up not being able to do the H1B visa, and we did a completely separate thing by him not coming here. But the point is like with the specialized knowledge, it can be super abused because it's super vague. So companies can argue, like in my case, almost anyone from their overseas branch can qualify to be there in the United States. And again, it has to be like a branch of the company. And that's the reason why we couldn't like get a way for it to specifically work, because like Josh would have to set up a bit like, well, okay, I'm not going to go into it, but essentially it didn't work because we were a separate company than Josh's company. Josh would have had done something where it was his company transferring himself to his own company to work with us in the United States. Okay. So the other thing is there's displacement. So U.S. workers have been forced to train incoming L1 visa workers before being laid off. I don't know to what extent that does, but that was mentioned in All In podcast as well. That's one of the things that kind of sucks about these visas in general. They were specifically talking about the H1B. And the thing is, All In didn't even mention the L1 visa from my recollection. Okay. So the L1 visas, because these are third-party companies that are contracting out work like Tata, there could be made an argument that if Tata has an office here, then Tata could still take advantage of the L1B visas, hire everybody over there, and then transfer them over here into the United States and exploit them. At least that's really the argument. The best thing that I would recommend that you do is go listen to Hard Forked, because Hard Forked dives deep into the L1 piece of it, which neither Pivot or All In specifically talked about, because again, they're not experts in those specific fields, where Hard Forked went and found an expert in that specific field and talked about the L1 visas being exploited in this specific instance. Okay. So the way in which I think the L1B visas and the H1B visas would work around would happen. So as scrutiny and restrictions on H1Bs increased, companies are going to shift to the L1B visas, because again, there's no cap, so they can avoid the lottery altogether. Easier to argue for specialized knowledge than a specialty occupation, which you have to argue for the H1B visas. Also, I believe a cheaper labor, no prevailing wage requirement. So LBs really a shadow replacement pipeline for H1Bs used by outsourcing firms and multinationals to bring in workers without facing the H1B salary and lottery barriers. So again, they're going to be transferring people over that they could still pay less than they would probably pay a worker here in the United States and not have to worry about the H1B visa. And to the Trump point that I think that they're trying to make for this is, again, they think that people are taking advantage of it, but again, they're trying to stop immigration coming into the United States, and that's one of the ways that they can get the immigration to stop coming into the United States is by this happening, but it doesn't solve the L1B problem. And again, there was only one podcast that talked about that from All In, Hard Forked, and Pivot. Now, the one thing that Hard Forked mentioned and Pivot mentioned that All in my opinion, did not really talk about as much was that the other problem that arises, which I think is one of the biggest problems with this, and I'm going to tell you how it will affect me personally, is that it stops companies that are startups that don't have $100,000 to pay for the H1B visa for their person to stay working for them. So if they found someone that they want to work for them and then get them an H1B visa, it makes it much harder now. And you might be thinking, well, then don't hire an immigrant. But the thing is that which is a possibility, yes. But the other thing is that if you're going to try to find the best and the brightest of what you need, and you're going to a school, and you're trying to find them, and they end up being on an H1B visa, once they in school, their H1B visa, which isn't part of this specific lottery piece here, or the 85,000, that H1B visa goes away after I think it's like 2 or 3 years. Okay, so if you hire someone right out of college that has an H1B visa, it carries them for a specific period of time until they can find a new sponsor to get their H1B visa, then the H1B visa would cost $100,000. So for me, I went on LinkedIn, I did a job hunt, I found Itoshi. Itoshi's from China. I don't specifically know off the top of my head if he has an H1B visa. He's in college. My guess is he has an H1B visa, but I don't personally know, and I'm not going to talk about that specifically, but let's say Itoshi has an H1B visa. Age of Radio is, one of the businesses that we're really focusing on to get to that 6-figure threshold right now. I will repeat that. We are working to get to the 6-figure threshold right now. I put a job out on LinkedIn. I did not really make it like when I was doing it, care or know that Hitoshi was not a citizen of the United States. All I cared about was he had an ITIN number so I could hire him and give him a W-9 and he could, pay taxes and I could pay him and whatever. And so I hired him. He's working for us. He's kicking ass. We're getting better. Our advertising is getting much stronger. He's going after sales. We're working on building our ad pipeline. We're slowly working to get, more ads onto the Age of Radio podcast network so hosts can get paid out and yada, yada, yada. He's doing a fantastic job. Once he's done with school, I either have 3 years to get to an extra $100,000 or Toshi's not going to be able to work for me anymore for the mere fact, whether he wants to or not, just for the mere fact that I don't have the $100,000 to now pay for the H1B visa. And that's the problem with this, is that I found someone that was here legally, going to school, paying into the tax system, doing what he needed to do, getting an education, works really, really great. Now, before 5,000, easy peasy. Take that from another business. Take that from Age of Radio, from my own money, whatever. 5,000 gives a shit. 100,000, completely different story. $100,000 for Hitoshi to continue to work with me, if he's on an H1B visa and that H1B visa, goes away, right? And that's a huge problem. Where the problem arises is the companies that have the $100,000 that are more established, they can pay this. And so one of the things that Pivot pointed out, and where Pivot was mainly talking about this, Kara and Scott Galloway on their podcast, they were mainly talking about this piece because Meta, NVIDIA, Microsoft, who else was there at that thing? Apple. They're always going to be able to stay ahead of the game and knock out other competition because the fact that they have the money. So they can take the $100,000 now, pay for whatever they need to get the best and brightest talent. And if I'm grinding it out and I find someone, let's just say I go and also find someone where I'm maybe out and about, meet someone, we get to talking, we want to do stuff together. He starts helping me with the software development. I give him a piece of the company, yada, yada, yada. He has an H1B visa. He's amazing. He wants to continue to go. We get it to $600,000. I have to pay $100,000 for that person to be able to stay here in the country and do it. It's ridiculous. And so Pivot and Hard Forks made a really big point about this. All in, I don't even think touched on this, that it reduces competition by having this as well. And I'm not saying that people should go out there and just go and try to find foreigners that are have the specialized knowledge and hire them and let them keep them here in the country. But what I'm saying is that I'm giving you a real life example of something that I am going through at this specific moment that would hinder what I am spending the time on. Because if in the case where Hitoshi is on an H1B visa, and this is what specifically happens, right? We have to get to the next level faster, which could be good for us because it's going to push us and grind us and whatever. But it's something that we shouldn't have to do when 2,000 to 5,000 seems feasible in this specific instance. Now, that being said, I don't know all of the ins and outs of everything. There might be the ability for someone who's in my situation to make an appeal to wherever you get the visa from and make an argument of why I should not have to pay the $100,000. That could be a possibility. There are probably going to be instances where that can happen. But to the main point is I really think that this hinders competition, and it really is just focused about getting immigrants out of the country. So I encourage you to read about this, to stay up to date with this, because this isn't something that I think that it could really have impact on companies and their expenses. I don't think for the bigger companies like the ones that I mentioned, it's not going to hurt them in any way whatsoever. Meta went out on a really big, crazy hiring escapade to get the best and the brightest of A1, talent. And so again, but it just is going to make it harder for small business owners, and to mainly small business owners, maybe mid-range business owners. I can't remember the term for it. But small business owners, it's going to make it harder. And I think this competes competition, and this isn't about the outsourcing piece of it, because I think the outsourcing piece is going to have a workaround. I think this is really geared towards making sure that we can get immigrants out of the country, and that I don't think is what America is about, and that's my personal opinion. We've been reading Think and Grow Rich in our 3T Warrior Academy book club. If you're not part of 3T Warrior Academy, go and check it out, 3twarrioracademy.com. And in the book club, we read a book together and we discuss it. And the one that we're doing right now is Think and Grow Rich. And I'm on chapter, I think I stopped in chapter 7 because chapter 7 does a lot with planning. And it does a lot, and it does a lot with the planning as a part of manifesting and manifestation. And in chapter 6, I think it was imagination, or chapter 5, it was about knowledge. And when we think about knowledge, we always think knowledge is power. And I think that most people now believe that, knowledge acted upon as power. And he talks about that in this book that was made from like the 1930s. And it's really, it's really important to realize that, knowledge acted upon is the most important thing. And one of the things that he talks about in the book is that schools teach you about how to acquire general knowledge. But where mastery comes from is by specializing in specific knowledge. And you don't necessarily have to specialize in just one form of knowledge, but it's about specializing in knowledge. And he talks a lot about that after we leave school, we don't learn anything, and we really don't increase our skill set in our specific skill that we want to know everything about. And that's, something that I've talked a lot about on this podcast, because I have been going and not really been, upping my game on, audio, on music, on finances, and on taxes. And that's one of the biggest things that is going to move me and my businesses to the next level. So what I did was I sat down and I said, okay, what are the things that I really need to be stronger in, or that are the things that are my main skill sets? And I've talked about this on previous episodes. I just want to revisit it because after, when I'm reading something and I hear something that I've thought about being re-mentioned, I kind of re-look at what I'm specifically doing in those areas so I can continue to be better in those areas of what I'm thinking about. And so again, the first one was really sitting and thinking about, music. I'm a rhythm. My main craft of music is songwriting and rhythm guitar. Okay. I need to get better at singing. So if we put those together, the crafts that I need to get better at, because I enjoy singing and it's part of songwriting, is, get better at songwriting. Okay. That's a craft. Get better at rhythm, not necessarily rhythm guitar, but get better at rhythm. And then get better at guitar also. So get better at guitar, get better at rhythm, get better at songwriting and singing. Okay. And so what have I really been working on to get better at those things, and how can I get better at those things? Well, one of the things is that with rhythm, percussion and drums help with a lot of the rhythm. And so I want to get better at percussion instruments such as drums. I bought a mood pan, which is a digital hand pan by Roland that I'm really excited about. And then I want to get some bongos and congas and get a drum set when I have the room to really, really practice that, because that will really increase my craft as it relates to the rhythm. And then I want to get better at singing. So I'm working on finding a singing coach that can help me with my singing to really sing, because I'm not really a great singer, mainly because I can play guitar really well. I have a hard time hearing the tones that I should be, because I'm trying to replicate my voice to the guitar too much, and then I'm not changing the notes as much as I would like to. And so that's one aspect of the thing that I need to be doing that I have not spent a lot of time on, being a guitar player since, I was 13. I haven't really gotten better much at the guitar. I've gotten much better at singing and songwriting. I've not gotten better at actually playing the guitar since I started playing when I was 13, 18 maybe, right? And that's bad. I need to get better at that craft and music as a whole. And so when you really think about it, I want you to think about your craft and think about how good you were when you started, and have you really gotten better at it? Have you really gotten more specialized in the knowledge and increased that knowledge base over the last 20 or 30 years? Or have you really stayed stagnant in that knowledge base, right? That's what I did when I thought about music. And then I moved it over to finance. And that's almost the same thing that's happened with finance. I got better at talking about finance, maybe. I try to stay up to date on news as it relates to finance. But I never increased, after I got my bachelor's in finance, I never increased learning about software for portfolio building, never, went deeper into like the Black-Scholes model and, creating alpha and learning, charting better and analysis and finance and machine learning. And it really came prevalent to me that fintech is so important, and we talk about it, but as a finance person, I never like dived into it and got better at it. And, so there's this class at the Chicago, University of Chicago, I love Illinois, University of Chicago Booth School. That's machine learning. It's $3,000. Could be a lot of money, could not be a lot of money. To me, it's not a lot of money. And so I'm really focused on learning more about machine learning and finance, because fintech continues to be the future. Blockchain continues to be the future. Most of the people that are in cryptocurrency know nothing about blockchain. I'm not saying that they need to necessarily know everything about blockchain, but if your whole world is going to be about, say, cryptocurrency blockchain, having a better knowledge or a specialized knowledge in the underlying of the blockchain, how it specifically works, maybe a little bit into the development, will make you an overall better person and educator of specific blockchain. And I'm talking to myself for that, because I'm the one that, works in that and does it, inside of our business and need to be better at it. And again, that's going harder into that specialized knowledge that talks about. Now, inside of the book, he also mentions that specialized knowledge can come from other people, and that's fine if you surround yourself around specialized people with the specialized knowledge. And that's one of the things that I have, really thinking we have certain people that have more specialization in it, but then we need people that have even more specialization in it, and what can you even specialize more in it? And so with finance, that's one of the biggest things that I've really been focusing on. And so for Q Financial to really take it to the next level, I got portfolio stuff. I got more tax stuff that I want, made a list of the education that I need to get done after I take some continued education courses for my life insurance license. And, so I'm making that list and I'm trying to plan it out, which I'll talk about on another podcast as I do it on a Gantt chart, because when I think about how successful I am now and the things that I did in the past, I noticed that I did a Gantt chart and, was like at this specific time in life, this is where I'm going to be. We had to do that in school. We had to make a Gantt chart of our entire life for our 10 or 20 years. If you wanted to do your life, you could, so that you had these milestones so that you could get better and progress and be better. And again, business is always about that. There's some caveats to living life that way from a philosophical perspective that I'm not going to go into right now. But the point is that is something that we should be doing. So when I look about finance, I think, okay, this is where I was. This is where I'm at now. There's not much better of what I know, right? Except for maybe the banking system, because I worked in a bank for 10 years, but I really need to up that skill set. So what can I do, and what fields do I need to do better to do that? And part of that, I did that also with the taxes as well for Q Financial. And so I went down the line after that. I looked at investing in general. You can think of that as finance as well, but investing in real estate. How can I become more specialized knowledge in that? How can I become more specialized in venture capitalism and all the crafts that I want to get better at? And then I made a list of them. And so I encourage you, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because it's something that I'm really thinking about and something that I'm really wanting to do. Because we have to get better at what we are doing with our lives, right? We have to get better at what we're doing with our specialized knowledge, because that specialized knowledge is what really people pay for into the future, right? I got a coaching client that I really want to, a high paying coaching client that bought time from me that I'll be starting those sessions with on Thursday. And I really want to be better than I was if this person bought me a couple months ago or a couple years ago. And the only way to do that is to set time to focus on how to improve your crafts. And when I think about my crafts, it's really music, philosophy, anthropology, the humanities, and then finance, and then audio. One of the reasons why I'm using this new software, which I had to get a bunch of drivers fixed on my hardware to run with it because it was messing up, and spent like an hour trying to record this episode before I actually recorded it because of the fact that the drivers needed to be fixed. But utilizing the new software, it also helps you utilize parts of your brain that you may have stopped using, right? That the learning mechanism, the remembering mechanism, trying to figure out new synapses in your brain, which can really help reduce Alzheimer's, my biggest fear. And, learning software and audio software and being better at so important as I move forward in Mercury and our show. If you watch Mercury, it's on YouTube, go to @Age of Radioverse. Mercury is to really get the audio better, push it out as a podcast, increase those, the downloads for the network, get some sponsors, get some ad revenue going, really understand that. And then the last one, so I looked at all the audio software that I want to get, that I'm working on to get better at that, to really increase that piece of it, which also goes along with music, but also goes along with, creating these types of the episodes and this content. And then the last one that I'm really, really, maybe should have been the first one that I talked about, but I don't have a real plan for it, is to really advertising, right? Like, I'm thinking about my businesses, and just, when we think about, the music, the finance, investing, the audio, and then advertising, right? Because Age of Radio is about advertising. We should know, one of the things that really struck me that Meta does shitty on is all of its hardware. Meta doesn't sell a lot of hardware. I don't think it makes a lot of profit on its hardware. All of its money still comes from advertising. Meta knows advertising better than anybody. Meta, which is Instagram, they're not social media platforms. They're fucking advertising platforms. They're advertising businesses. And advertising isn't going away. It's going to get better. New ways of doing it, new ways of getting data. I should know more about advertising and marketing than anybody else. And it frustrates me that I don't. And when I was coming back on the plane, I was thinking about it a lot. Just got back from Illinois. That's why this episode you're getting on probably a Wednesday rather than a Tuesday or maybe a Thursday. I don't know. You'll get it at some point. Because you're listening to it right now. And when I think about that, it's just, I should know more about that than anybody. Because I have a business. The business is not just the business is an advertising business. We sell advertising. It's not a podcast company. It's an advertising company, a software company to sell advertising, right? And so that's one of the things that I need to fix in how I'm spending my time and how I'm educating myself, because I'm losing that battle and I'm losing that knowledge base, and I should know more about it than everybody. And I do know a lot about it, right? I talk to people in the marketing mechanisms of businesses, and I'm talking to them about how they should do it, what they should be doing, and I know a lot about it, but I want to know even more about it. I want Age of Radio to know more about advertising and marketing than anything else. We should have the staff that knows more about it, the sales team that knows more about it, how to sell it, how to use it, how to make money with it, how to implement it in different ways, how to track data, how to get it in front of people, how to understand the consumer more. And we're not there yet. And that's one of the things that keeps me up at night, not being able to put the time and energy into that, because of not putting the time and energy into those things, right? And so when I think about where we're at from a business perspective, and the knowledge that we need to learn, and the knowledge that we need to understand that we need to learn, and then learning that knowledge, and then organizing what we do know and what we need to know, We're not at that level in any of our organizations. And that's something that's really been keeping me up and been thinking about, because that's where we need to get to, and where I want to get to, and where you need to get to if you have a small business. And hopefully if you listen to this, you do. So again, those are the things that I'm thinking about this week, and what I'm moving into is really specialized knowledge. Make that a part of your daily life, as specializing in your craft, focusing on specialized knowledge. And it doesn't matter if you're 60, it doesn't matter if you're 30, it doesn't matter if you're 20. Focus on your craft to get better at it. The businesses you have, you need to know more about the business and the money-making mechanism of your business than anybody else. And you need to specialize in that and get people around you also that have additional specializations, because that's how you are going to master anything, really. And with that, be thankful, grateful, and kind, and we'll talk with you soon.